top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, they've done it. The MSM and the political establishment have said to hell with the prosperity of the UK and made it politically impossible for Prime Minister Liz Truss and Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng to commit to top-rate tax cuts. It's all just a game to them.
Is it really necessary to scrap the 45p rate, which only benefits the really wealthy anyway?
The people you appear to be supporting more than any others are millionaires. Why should someone earning £1 million get an extra £55,000 a year from next year?
So, do you agree we're being governed by media? I'll share my fear of another era of political inertia. Now Truss has been hobbled by the elite. That's in my digest next, and I'll get the thoughts of my superstar panel. Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, broadcaster Sam Dalla, and former Brexit Party MEP Belinda de Lucy. Plus, as Truss proves that unlike her idol Maggie Thatcher, the lady is for turning, is your confidence in the new PM shaken? And as high-profile MPs, including that snake Michael Gove and sacked Grant Shapps, come out against Truss, does the Tory party have a terminal loyalty problem? That's our big debate at 10:30. Did you catch these shocking scenes of aggression that marred the start of the Tory party conference? So, with Jacob Rees-Mogg needing a police escort and Michael Fabricant rushed by demonstrators, is this proof that lefty bullying is destroying civility and free speech in politics? Join me for that at 10. And as the website of virtue signalling rag The Daily Mirror makes a racially insensitive gaffe following Labour MP Rupert Huck's vile comments about Kwasi Kwarteng, is the Chancellor right that the left have been driven crazy by the success of Conservative minorities? Chair of the Social Mobility Commission and Britain's strictest head teacher, love this one, Catherine Burble-Singh, weighs in on that at 9:40. Do the actions of extreme eco groups make you less likely to support their cause? An activist from End UK Private Jets, the organisation which allegedly poured feces on a statue of Colonel Tom Moore, goes to war with media commentator Christine Hamilton in the clash at 9:25. As ever, I'll get your verdict too. After a bombshell new royal book reveals she was, quote, unresponsive to the Queen Consort's advice about how to survive in the royal family. Did Meghan always have it in for Camilla? Well, Angela Levin, writer of this new book about the woman behind King Charles, will reveal all at 10:15. It's the story that's caused plenty of turbulence this week. Man of the People Jim Davidson gives his rapid-fire take on Virgin Atlantic's skirt-wearing male stewards, and more of the week's woker stories at Uncancelled at 10:40. Plus, as she claims free speech is a new weapon of war, has Jacinda Ardern become the acceptable face of tyranny?
How do you tackle climate change if people do not believe it exists? How do you ensure the human rights of others are upheld when they are subjected to hateful and dangerous rhetoric and ideology?
Neil Oliver, tonight's outsider, on that at 9:50. And the people of Scotland showed exactly what they think of scheming Sturgeon's divisive politics earlier today. I'll bring you more on the jeering the MSM doesn't want you to hear in the Media Buzz at 10:30. Tomorrow's newspaper front pages, plus Greatest Britain Union Jackass on the way tonight too. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. Just one thing first, though, and I think it was the former Tory leadership contender Penny Mordaunt, the woman who came so close to beating Liz Truss to the top job, who summed up the political crisis facing her party best at a late-night conference event in Birmingham.
It's nearly Monday. What have we learned so far in conference? We've learned that our policies are great, but our comms is shit.
She's right, you know. And that's why I'll set out why Truss was wrong to U-turn in my digest next. Then my superstar panel weigh in. Top Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, the journalist and broadcaster Sam Dowler, and the former MEP and political campaigner Belinda de Lucy. But before all of that, the news at 9 with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. Good evening to you. The Chancellor has acknowledged it's been rather a tough day for him today, hours after he announced a U-turn on tax cuts for the wealthy. Addressing the Conservative Party conference today, Kwasi Kwarteng said it's now time to get Britain moving, promising there'd be no more distractions. Before his speech, he confirmed he's scrapping the 45 pence income tax rate for people earning more than £150,000 a year. He also told party members rather than bashing business, the government would be backing it.
More jobs, higher pay, more money for public services. Because we cannot have a strong NHS without a strong economy. We can't have good schools without a strong economy. We cannot fund our armed forces without a strong economy. So growing our economy should be our central and guiding mission.
But the Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves said the speech showed the government was out of touch and had an appalling record on growth. And talking about the tax cut, she said the U-turn had come too late.
It was obvious they weren't going to get this through the House of Commons. They were forced into this screeching U-turn. But so much damage has already been done with higher government borrowing costs and huge worries for people about how they're going to afford their mortgages.
Now, news away from politics. A 34-year-old man has been remanded in custody after being charged with the murder of Olivia Pratt-Corbell. Thomas Cashman appeared at Liverpool Crown Court, accused of fatally shooting the 9-year-old inside her home in August. He's also charged with the attempted murder of Olivia's mother, as well as 2 counts of possessing a firearm with intent to endanger life. Ofgem is warning the UK faces a significant risk of gas shortages this winter as a result of Russian disruption to supplies in Europe and the war in Ukraine. The energy regulator says Britain's in a good position with few direct imports of gas from Russia, but needs to be prepared for all scenarios this winter. Ofgem has said it's putting sensible contingency measures in place. And the King has offered his warmest congratulations to residents in Scotland's newest city in his first public engagement as monarch. The King and Queen Consort have been welcomed by crowds in Dunfermline to mark the former town gaining city status. It's one of 8 places that have won city status as part of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. The King said there could be no more fitting way to mark his late mother's extraordinary life of service.
That would, I know, gladden my dear mother's heart, as it certainly gladdens mine. And as you celebrate your well-deserved status as Scotland's new city, I can only offer my warmest congratulations and my heartfelt wishes for the years to come.
That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. You're with GB News, the People's Channel. Let's get back now to Dan.
For the future of the British economy and the survival of this new Conservative government, it was utterly critical that Liz Truss did not U-turn on her brave and bold plan to slash the top rate of tax to the same level it was for the entire premiership of Tony Blair. So the decision enforced on Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng by the new PM to do just that is without a doubt politically devastating. Her doubters now want to say her credibility is shot after just 27 days in power. And I say this as someone who backed Truss throughout the leadership contest because I believed her when she said she had the bottle to make unpopular decisions and stand by them. Why, Liz, did you give in so soon to those who want to see you fail? And that is the problem with marching to the beat of the political class and the MSM, who operate in the Westminster bubble and don't give a damn about the very real problems facing ordinary Brits. Nothing gets done. Because the establishment, backed by the British bashing corporations, Sly News, band together to make it impossible to do anything that challenges the orthodoxy. Look.
Is it really necessary to scrap the 45p rate, which only benefits the really wealthy anyway? It's not even due to come in until April. It didn't need to be announced now and take people by surprise.
There's a time to get back to the 40%. Not now, I think.
I tell you what.
I do not think that the choice to have tax cuts for those that are earning hundreds of thousands of pounds is the right choice.
The people you appear to be supporting more than any others are millionaires. Why should someone earning £1 million get an extra £55,000 a year from next year?
When you have additional billions of pounds in play, to have as your principal decision the headline tax move, cutting tax for the wealthiest, that is a display of the wrong values.
Let's not muddy the water with this other thing, this tax cut for wealthy people right now, when the priority needs to be on everyday households.
But if you think today's devastating decision would stop that hysteria, you ain't seen nothing yet. Now, every member of the political establishment and MSM who demanded a left-wing U-turn from Truss on the top tax rate will slam and deride the PM for U-turning. That script is written already, and this is why she should have held form. Just like with the lengthy COVID lockdowns, which the same people forced upon Boris Johnson, have won again. And now they'll continue demanding concessions, resulting in political inertia for the next 2 years.
Is this enough? Will this calm the markets down? Will things go back to the way they were?
I don't think it'll make any substantive difference.
Any more U-turns? Scrapping the cap on bankers' bonuses? Will that be U-turned, Chancellor?
I've said what I've said about the 45p rate, and I'm totally focused on delivering the growth plan.
It's the right thing to get rid of this indefensible policy, but the government's got to do far more.
So no more U-turns?
Continues. And we're totally focused on delivering the growth plan.
I'll ask for a third and final. No more U-turns.
We're totally focused on the growth plan.
The right decision, but so much damage has already been done.
There will continue to be pressure from Tory MPs against Liz Truss, and the worry for her tonight is those rebellious MPs, such as Michael Gove, having forced one really embarrassing U-turn. The worry for her is that they will join forces and force other U-turns on her.
Of course. And do you not see how it all works? They all work together on this. I mean, that snake Gove is already threatening a new rebellion over potential cuts. And that's why my rage over this decision is actually now off the scale. It was Tory MPs who decided to depose Boris and put us in this mess, not Conservative Party members, certainly not the public. And just like with the Partygate obsession, the MSM narrative around Truss has now been set by an overwhelmingly biased media. Don't believe me? This tweet from Sly News political editor Beth Rigby last night, I think it tells you all you need to know. She wrote last night, Tory conference is shrouded in gloom. Has Truss already sealed her own fate? Former cabinet ministers publicly saying PM must change course, and 2 senior MPs tell me colleagues already coming up with suggestions to change party rules to oust PM and replace her quickly. And the Sunday Times yesterday went further in their reporting. They said former ministers are openly discussing what would happen if Truss was ousted. There would have to be a leader by acclamation, one said, and it would have to be Boris or Rishi. She's already finished. As my friend Claire Fox, a member of the House of Lords, tweeted, for God's sake. Meanwhile, the public is relegated to the sidelines, forced to watch passively as this lot play House of Cards. Even any pretense of democracy is treated with contempt. This whole farce is utterly galling. I completely agree. This is not a game. The country is in a perilous state, and it needs a visionary leader prepared to make politically difficult calls in the short term. I hope so badly that Truss would prove she had the Thatcher mettle to rise above their usual bullying tactics. And as I've written in a new column for the Mail Online tonight, even if you're opposed to the cut to the 45p rate, you should be very concerned about the prospect of government by media. It's farcical that a Tory government in 2022 is considered irresponsible for wanting to return the top tax rate to the level it stayed under Tony Blair. And if you believe this £2 billion policy, which has actually proven to raise more money in the long term, caused a market collapse when spending hundreds of billions on COVID lockdown policies didn't raise an eyebrow, then you're being very naive. No, the shameful behaviour we've seen from most of our ruling class over the past week is devastating proof that they would rather advance their own petty political rows than try to salvage our economy. To respond now, my superstar panel. Top Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, the journalist and broadcaster Sam Dowler, and the former MEP and political campaigner Belinda de Lucy. Carol Malone, I just feel completely despondent tonight about
I'm gutted. You know, even yesterday she was defending the 45p tax rate, and then today she's caved in, and she's caved in on Twitter. I couldn't believe that statement on Twitter. Her and Quartine were like two kids, you know, feeling they're answerable to Twitter. But you know, I'm.
It's always Twitter. 5% of the population are on Twitter. They should all delete Twitter.
But you know, I like you had. You know, I didn't like her during the campaign because I didn't believe she could possibly fulfil the promises. When I saw this budget, I'm not a financial analyst, but I read analysts, I read financial experts, and they said this is one of the best budgets they'd ever seen. But it's not going to work in a week or a fortnight, and she has caved in less than 2 weeks. And I just think, you know, when someone U-turns like this, it shows that the government is not in control. And watch them, you know, Labour already scenting blood. Her own party are scenting blood because they're now saying we want more concessions. You know, Gove, you're right, you refer to him as a snake. He really is a snake. This man is a backstabber. And you know what? He wouldn't be doing this if he had been given a minister's job in Truss's government. But he knew that was never going to happen. So he decided to do for her anyway. This is what Gove does. And it's appalling that he's galvanising his own party in destroying a Prime Minister who hasn't had her feet under the table for a month yet. But more importantly, never mind them, it's the rest of us. Because there are people, you know, the British people, we depend on politicians to put policy in place that is going to save us. Our economy has been sluggish down, you know, since 2008. It's been in a bad way. This was going to get us out of it. And now they're going to be paralysed into not doing anything because, as we heard tonight, that Labour won't vote for it and neither will some of the Tories now. So what did they elect her for? 2/3 of Tories voted for her in a leadership election the public didn't really want. And now it's been foisted on. So now they're saying after a month in the job, she's not good enough. It's, you know, if they can't see, they are annihilating this party and they're opening the door for Starmer and they're making Starmer look economically illiterate. And we all know that, economically literate, and we all know he's nowhere close to that. They are making him look electable, and that frightens the tripe out of me.
Indeed, and Belinda de Lucy, the whole point of the 45p tax rate, which again, by the way, that far-right Tony Blair had a 40p top tax rate for his entire premiership. And lots of people think, actually, one of the reasons why Gordon Brown boosted it up was to set a political booby trap for future Tory governments. Because the point is, right, to be competitive on the international scene, to attract the right talent, the right business brains, the right high-net individuals into this country, you can't be taking over 50% of everything they earn. It's immoral.
Yes, it is. And also the whole point of Brexit is that we were going to be this nimble, independent, in control of our own fiscal policy country. And the EU were unravelling at the mini-budget because they knew deep down they did not want this competitive, independent country on their doorstep. And now they're looking at our government going, oh, I thought they would all be chickens in the end. Look, they've all U-turned. They haven't got the guts to go on it on their own. And I feel like with the incentive for businesses to come here, investing to come here. We need wealth creators, business makers, and that was bold. And the 45% tax reduction to 40 was a sign of belief in ourselves. It was Truss saying, we believe in the UK that we can do better. But you know what? The media, the reality is the media do shape polls at the moment with their fear-mongering, with their whipping up and twisting of stories. But it is up to our politicians to accept them or not. They are the ones that are betraying us by listening to the media.
Because the media, I think, have actually been in control since March 2020.
And 2016, I think,
their absolute power. Well, actually, I mean, the thing thing is, I think the Brexit referendum, that was an almighty victory against the media. And that was such a positive thing. And then Boris Johnson being able to deliver Brexit, that was such an incredible victory over the mainstream media in this country. But it was the start of COVID when they saw if they just hammer something home day after day, night after night, they can create political inertia and force governments into U-turns. I've warned for so long the same thing happened in Australia. When the media sees that they have the power to depose a Prime Minister, they do it time and again.
It's populist policies, isn't it? You know, in the same way we've seen governments in recent years, and the Tory governments, produce populist policies, we're saying that mainstream media peddling something they know is going to appeal to the masses. And it's stupid because the masses need to be looked after by the wealth creators. And, you know,
and it's
I
not
get
what's
why
best
they're
for
angry.
Britain. Yeah, of course, but
I get why the people on low incomes are angry. I totally get it. But what they have to understand is that the rich people are going to create the wealth for all of us.
Of course, and by the way, sorry, Sam, I'll let you come in, but let me just make one final point. This top-rate tax cut costs £2 billion. That's what all of the focus is on. What about the focus on the £150 billion that Liz Truss has just committed the government to spend to stop these extortionate electricity bills? But the point is, Sam, this is great for your side. This is great for Starmer, isn't it? Because let's be honest here, the Tory party is in self-destruct mode, and I am embarrassed for them. They are acting like children.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you. I think after Kwasi's quasi-budget, you know, this is a wildly unpopular thing. That, I mean, it's only a very small part of the budget, but because people see, as people shout in the street, it's reverse Robin Hood, etc. It's like, and ultimately, you know, if a very wealthy person gets extra money, they will just put it in their bank account. Whereas if someone
Not
like
true.
you know,
They
fine, they might invest it, but it still goes back to them. Whereas somebody like, you know, my partner, for example, who doesn't make very much money, if they get extra money in a month, they will spend it in the economy. The point is, I don't think it's trial by media. I think or Twitter, because as you say, only 5% of people are even on it.
But it's what the politicians are obsessed
I agree.
with.
They have folded because it's so unpopular, and therefore they. But
unpopular with who? Never mind if it's unpopular.
With the public.
She said she was going to be unpopular, Carol.
Why didn't she follow through? Why didn't she follow through then?
The economy has to be fixed. What was really disappointed with me with her, she said, I don't care how it looks. Her response to this is exactly about how it looks. And that's what's gutted me with her. You know, we all knew we were going to have to take some tough medicine after the pandemic and after what it cost to get the economy back on track. We all knew it was going to be tough. And here, the minute we get tough and the budget is produced, people are screaming. Things have to be fixed. And if they're not fixed now, this country is down the toilet by the time Labour gets out.
She's flip-flopped again as she's done. No, but she did it loads of times during the leadership
she did it
campaign
once
as
during
well.
the leadership campaign.
She did it during the leadership campaign as well.
But that's
you know,
a mistake, Belinda, because the problem is now she can be classed by all of these people who were forcing her into this U-turn now as a flip-flopper, as the opposite
as weak.
And what a shame, Dan, because the damage was already done. They haven't healed anything by reversing this. They've actually made investors wobble a little bit more, maybe. Gosh, they don't believe in their own policies and who actually controls the government.
It's catastrophic.
All these things.
It's catastrophic. And actually, I'm probably the only person in the country who does, but I actually felt deeply sorry for Kwasi Kwarteng today, delivering his conference speech, Carol, because he was like an emasculated non-chancellor, because everything he was saying in his speech was meaningless.
And do you know what really upset me about her yesterday? She threw him under the bus. You know what? Don't tell me she didn't sign off on that budget before he made it and made the speech. She knew what was in it. She must have believed in it then. She told us she believed in it. And then the minute she looks like she's going to be in trouble, she throws him under the bus and goes, well, it was his idea.
And these two were meant to be different. They were meant to be the opposite of Blair and Brown and Sunak and Johnson. They were meant to be working like that.
Well, the problem is, you also have people like Nadine Dorries calling for a general election today. You've got Michael Gove, you've got Grant Shapps. It's like, I mean, what are we watching? Like the Real Housewives of Westminster. It's like a reality show.
Well, it feels like
them self-combust.
They're treating this as a game.
What we want is stability, and that's exactly what we're not getting.
And here's my point, and this would be my message to the Tory party. Well, of course, and this would be my message to the Tory party, Carol. Look, your members based on a democratic process, gave this woman an overwhelming mandate.
Yes, completely.
Give her a chance. She has had 27 days. 12 of that was the official mourning period for the Queen. You have turned on her after 27 days and you want to keep running the country? It's not going to happen.
Yeah, they don't deserve to run the country.
Even I think it's appalling. As a lefty, I think it's appalling. And I think it just literally opens the door. Fine, Nadine Dorries. Yeah, fine, we'll have a general election. Why would she even say that when she knows, if you look at the polling right now, they would lose? That's what she's calling for.
Disgusted by the U-turns too, Carol.
Well, and I don't blame her for being disgusted. You know, she was one of the ones saying, you know, before Boris was ousted, don't do this. Don't have this leadership election now. Let Boris carry on.
I wonder what Boris is feeling now. He's probably watching this, you know, counting the days.
Of course, because also, by the way, and remember, I was mocked and pilloried for saying consistently that getting rid of Boris Johnson would end up being electoral suicide for the Conservative Party. That prediction is looking more and more correct by the day. And, Carol, who knows? He might be back by the next election at this rate.
But Linda made a very good point there, and we should have it so, because whatever they give now, giving this today will mean nothing to the detractors. This is just the start for them.
Well, Carol,
no matter what they do now,
it's more than that, isn't it? You saw Peston, what he's already going for. Oh, this is not one U-turn and the end of it.
No, it's bankers'
this is
bonuses,
the start.
yeah.
Exactly, and the bankers' bonuses
They're self-combusting, and surely after 12 years it's time to give somebody else a chance.
Well, of course that's what you say.
It's really not.
Of course that's what you say.
God help
but actually, if you have a bit of investigation into Keir Starmer's policies unveiled at his conference last week, you will see that would be the path to economic destruction for the country. You think it's bad now? You wait till Starmer's pushing for net zero effectively by 2030, and then you'll really see how bad it gets.
Let the people decide.
Sam Tyler, Carol Malone, thank you so much, my superstar panel are here all night. But coming up, is Kwarteng correct that the Tories are more progressive on diversity issues than Labour, and the left hate it? The outspoken Catherine Birbalsingh, chair of the Social Mobility Commission, also Britain's strictest head teacher. I love her. She weighs in on this at 9:40. But first, do the actions of extreme eco groups make you less likely to support their cause? An activist from End UK Private Jets, the organisation which allegedly poured feces on a statue of Colonel Tom Moore over the weekend, takes on political commentator Christine Hamilton straight after the break. Fascinated by your view on this? Email me down at gbnews.uk. Tweet me using the handle at gbnews. Our poll running there too. The results after the break.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christie. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
It's time now for The Clash. Now, there's a new group of eco-warriors on the block called End UK Private Jets, whose mission, as you might have guessed, is to ban the use of private jets in this country. And determined to make a name for themselves, the group posted a shocking video online of one of its alleged supporters pouring what appeared to be human faeces on a memorial for the late Colonel Tom Moore. Unsurprisingly, the video is not at all pleasant, so brace yourselves before you watch. Now, that individual has since been charged by police on suspicion of causing criminal damage over the alleged defacing. And as I've been reporting on this show, civil disobedience from climate protests is likely to get even worse, with Just Stop Oil, Extinction Rebellion and Animal Rebellion preparing to join forces and unleash an October of hell for ordinary Brits. So tonight I'm asking, do the actions of eco-groups make you less likely to support their cause? Let me know your thoughts by emailing dan@gbnews.uk, tweet me @gbnews. While you're there, vote in our polling. I'll bring you your results shortly. But going to battle on this one, I'm joined by the writer and media personality Christine Hamilton and spokesperson for the new group End UK Private Jets, Kai Bartlett. Now, welcome to you both. Just before we begin, by the way, to make perfectly clear, Madeline Budd, who we just saw there, has been charged with criminal damage for allegedly defacing the memorial to Colonel Tom Moore. As a result, we cannot discuss her presumed guilt or innocence and legally can only refer to that specific incident in a matter of fact terms. But Kai Bartlett, I do want to know what on earth Captain or Colonel Tom Moore has to do with any of your political protests. I mean, this is a late soldier who represented the UK in World War II, has done did the most incredible fundraising job. Why on earth would you want to drag him into anything?
Yeah, you're right. He did like so many amazing things, and yeah, here we all are. Everyone spitting on his grave, pouring poo on his grave. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, so why?
Why are we doing it? Well, you know, oh, sorry, when I say we, I mean me, the general public, you know, everyone in this studio. Situation is we're sort of all fine with the government murdering our kids, and I think that's, you know, sort of worse than pouring poo on his memorial, and we're all doing it. So yeah. You're just a juvenile attention seeker, aren't you, Kai? That's what this is about. You've got nothing better to do, nothing bigger to worry about, because I just think you must have been taught when you were growing up about basic human decency. Yeah, and I think it's a bit of a lower standard than human decency to let our government murder our kids. So, yeah.
OK, but you still have not asked me at all why you would want to target a decorated war veteran who spent his dying years supporting an incredible cause.
Yeah, so, yeah, no, he did, you know, as you said, as I said, he did all this amazing stuff, and, you know, we need to stop lying to ourselves that everything's fine and that his legacy is not being violated right now, because it is. How would you feel if one of your relatives' graves had human faeces poured all over it, Kai? I think it would be quite appropriate, given that that's also what's going on. My relatives did cool stuff, and, you know, the actions of the UK government and the UK people is, you know, equivocally, morally equivalent to pouring poo on their graves as well. More appropriate for Captain Tom, because he was, like, you know, extra cool. But yeah. Do you know what? I mean, Christine Hamilton, this just makes me feel physically ill.
It does me too. And I mean, I am honestly virtually speechless at what I have just heard. The sheer entitlement, the arrogance, the disrespect, the offence. It's just mind-boggling that anybody could even think that that was something that they should do. And we know why they chose Colonel Tom. You're quite right. He's not Captain Tom. He's Colonel Tom. We know why they chose him, because he's the sort of person who would elicit the response that they've got. And yes, we are giving them the oxygen of publicity, but I'm not going to name them. Anybody who would do what that person did yesterday, she filmed herself doing it. clearly, pardon?
Allegedly did.
Oh, well, when you video yourself doing something, okay, well, she allegedly did. She allegedly videoed herself doing it. Anybody who can do that is, frankly, mentally deranged. They're juvenile. They have a sense of entitlement that is appalling. Colonel Tom fought, and many of his friends and colleagues died to give that person, and you, Kai, and me, and Dan, and all our viewers, the freedoms that we all enjoy today. He did not fight so that people could desecrate graves like that. It's not the first time, by the way, that memorial to him has been desecrated. Somebody painted IRA on it in white paint just about a year ago. Why don't you concentrate your efforts on the people who are really causing the problems? Why don't you go and demonstrate and put excrement on statues in Russia or China? China is spewing out, here we are, you're the eco-warrior, you think that this country is damaging the universe by, non-environmental actions. I am so speechless with anger, I can hardly get it out. China is building 250 power stations. Why don't you go and demonstrate over there?
Yeah. Well, actually, do you know what, Kai? I would make it even more simple for you, right? You have a problem with... Yeah, no, I know, Christine. Kai, I'd make it even more simple for you, though. You have an issue with private jets, OK? Why don't you go and protest the celebrities like Taylor Swift and Kylie Jenner and Puff Daddy, whoever it is, these Leonardo DiCaprio, why don't you go and peacefully protest at the airports where these celebrities are using private jets? Why on earth bring a dead hero into the mix, Kai?
I think a more useful question is why is everyone chill with them flying around in private jets?
Well, I'm not. Have you not seen how often I've called out Harry and Meghan for saying that they believe in an eco-emergency? I mean, what would you say about Harry and Meghan going to eco summits on private jets? Do you have anything to say about them, Kai?
Well, yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Colonel Tom never flew a private jet, did he, Kai?
Quite right. And, yeah, private jets fly around and pour poo and spit and blood on his grave and his memorial. Every time one takes off, that's what it does.
Oh, so you did this for Colonel Tom. OK, I see.
Can I just ask you, the number of private jets is relatively very small. The number of people you're talking about is very small. The vast amount of the pollution from aircraft comes from people taking package holidays, ordinary, normal, decent people. Why don't you protest about that? Why pick on the private jets? They are a tiny, tiny minority. They're not the ones that cause most of the problem. They might cause more per air mile per person, but the most pollution that you're talking about is caused by the package holidays. Cheap flights. Protest about that.
You could sort of imagine if that happened, if the government banned regular planes, that everyone would be upset. No one would be upset, as far as the working class and normal people would be. No one's going to be upset if the UK government bans private jets, but they're too...
Well, look, I don't think anything should be banned, Kai. But actually, here's the irony here. I think you have quite a good case to take to the British public on celebrities and very privileged individuals who reject the use of commercial jets in order to fly private jets. Unfortunately, Kai, the despicable actions of your group mean that I have instantly dismissed you, because I actually think you are a madman.
And we're going to keep on doing it until private jets are ended or someone murders us.
I mean, Kai, are you all there? Are you OK, Kai? Because there was also this very shocking incident where you lit your arm on fire. I think we can have a look at this now. It was at a tennis event in London over the past couple of weeks. Kai, what is going on in your mind to think that this sort of action is right when we live in a democratic society? You can come on this show and talk about private jets. Why are you doing this type of crazy thing? You could have killed yourself there, Kai, and you could have actually killed other people.
Yeah, and I did it, and we looked at the response from the public and they were just like, oh yeah, fair enough. Like it wasn't a big deal. So that's where the UK public's at on what I did. So.
I mean, Christine, have we sort of got the worst demonstrator in British history in our studio tonight? Because your approach is actually doing you a disservice, in my view, Christine. Do you agree?
Well, of course I do. I mean, his behaviour, you're right, he is deranged. Anybody who's going to set fire to himself in that way, you're just the same. I mean, you're presumably, this isn't a question, I am presuming that you are an arm of Extinction Rebellion and all that sort of thing. All you're trying to do is disrupt the lives of normal people by gluing yourselves to motorways, invading the House of Commons, not that there are normal people in there. It is utterly ridiculous, and you're not having any effect on the general public. We are not thinking, oh my goodness, yes, we must stop taking private jets, we must stop this, we must stop that. Everybody's concerned about their use of it, the way they care for the environment. Of course they are. But this is not the way to do it. You're a semi-Marxist organisation. It's perfectly obvious. But, I mean, you seem to me to be, frankly, a bit...
I mean, Kai, do you have a job?
I've paused my university degree.
And this is your full-time pursuit now? OK, well, let me give you some advice, Kai. You need to stop these silly stunts. You need to stop desecrating the graves or the memorials of good human beings. And what you need to do is you need to democratically, peacefully and legally protest the very rich oligarchs, the hypocritical celebrities like Meghan and Harry and Leonardo DiCaprio who take private jets. Then you might be taken seriously, Kai. But at the moment, all you're doing is a huge disservice for your movement and you are turning off the British public. I'll give you the final word, Kai.
We're going to keep on doing it unless someone kills us.
You've said that before. Don't tempt people.
What do you have planned, Kai? Who's next? Who's your next target? Who are you going for? Churchill, Princess Diana. Come on, who are you going for?
Oh, you'll have to find out.
The only way to stop this sort of madcap, disgusting behaviour is to impose incredibly strict penalties. If somebody who allegedly put human excrement over Colonel Tom's memorial, they should be made to do hours and hours of community service cleaning out lavatories, filthy ones.
No, indeed.
Plus a few months behind bars.
Goodness me. OK, Christine Hamilton, the political commentator and spokesperson for End UK Private Jets, Kai Bartlett. This is the level of dialogue going on now with the far left in this country. So who do you agree with? After the memorial for Colonel Tom Moore was allegedly attacked with human faeces, do the actions of eco-groups make you less likely to support their cause? Helen on Twitter says, did people support these narcissists before this latest stunt? I'm guessing not. From Emma, I used to recycle everything religiously, but now I'm so sick of being lectured to. I now recycle if it's convenient, but I do not go the extra mile. Nothing will ever be enough for these people. I totally understand where you're coming from, Emma. It's actually doing the opposite of what these groups want us to do in terms of our personal actions. And from Michael on the email, they have lost the crowd with their sixth form actions. Yes, we know and understand their message, but nothing happens overnight and can't until the world has the technology to provide the instant answers they are having a paddy about. And your verdict is now in. 90% of you agree that the actions of these extreme eco groups make people less likely to support their cause. Just 10% of you think it doesn't. Coming up, as Liberal darling Jacinda Ardern claims free speech is a new weapon of war, is she now the acceptable face of tyranny? Neil Oliver, tonight's Outsider at 9:50. But first, after the virtue signallers in the office of the Mirror make a racially insensitive gaffe following Labour MP Rupa Hark's vile comments about Kwasi Kwarteng, is the Chancellor right that the left have been driven crazy by the success of conservative minorities? Chair of the Social Mobility Commission and Britain's strictest head teacher of this woman, Catherine Berbel-Singh. She's going to share her thoughts on this straight after the break.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back. The left-wing newspaper The Daily Mirror has issued a grovelling apology after it mistakenly ran a picture of the wrong person in an online story about Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng. Kwarteng tweeted, "That isn't me," in response to the story about the mini-budget that incorrectly pictured Bernard Mensah, the president of International for the Bank of America. Now, the Mirror apologised and said it would redouble its efforts against racism, but that's exactly the issue. The newspaper is one of the biggest purveyors of identity politics, but its actions don't match its relentless rhetoric. And it rounded off a week during which the left exposed its deep-rooted issues with diversity after Labour MP Rupa Huq sparked a race row by describing Kwarteng as, quote, superficially black. Watch.
He's a black man, but again, he's got more in common. If you look at it's that Joe Cox thing, more in common. If you look at the character, he went to Eton, I think he went to very expensive prep school, all the way through the top schools in the country. If you hear him on the Today programme, you wouldn't know he's black.
Kwarteng finally responded to Huq's comments yesterday, telling the Mail on Sunday there is always that element on the left where it's OK being black if you were the right sort of black person, that you subscribe to their agenda, and like a bit of British bashing and the rest of it. What drives the left crazy is seeing successful ethnic minority politicians in the Conservative Party on gender, on race, on all of these things that they think they own. They are failing and are backward, and the Conservative Party is much more progressive. Now, Catherine Birbalsingh, the government social mobility chair, also criticised the left's obsession with identity politics, tweeting in response to the Mirror's gaffe, "This is the problem with anti-racism. It is all about how things seem and look as opposed to how things really are." And I'm delighted to say, Catherine, Britain's strictest head teacher, joins me now. Catherine, these two incidents were extraordinary, weren't they? Because it really does expose, as you say, the faux anti-racism narrative that comes from the left.
That's right. That's exactly right. Faux anti-racism. They're very much concerned with putting black boxes on Instagram because it makes them seem or look as if they're anti-racist, when in fact they're often very racist. I get so much racism from the left. You're told as a brown or black person, ethnic minority, that you're not allowed to vote on the right, you're not allowed to think like a conservative, that you're somehow betraying your own people. The things they said about Kwasi Kwarteng really, it's just horrifying. Rupa Huq in particular, saying there about how he doesn't sound like a black man. What is it to sound like a black man? That's what I'd like to know. How do you sound black? Because there are black people who come from Nigeria, there are black people who come from Jamaica, there are black British people, some who grow up in the north, some who are in Scotland. What is it to sound black? It's shocking that in 2022 that people say this sort of thing, and they obviously say it because in their circles, it's perfectly acceptable to speak like this. Because if it wasn't acceptable, she just wouldn't say that kind of thing. So, and I mean, I know this just from a lifetime of having had that kind of abusive talk around me. It is just it's a racism that's permissible, and it exists on the left, and they are quite, they'll point the finger when there's more kind of what we would think about as old school racism, someone being called a name or something. But next thing you know, they might use the word coconut or bounty to describe a black or brown person, meaning that you're brown or black on the outside and you're white on the inside. Because again, they think that there are certain ways of being white and being black. So when they call you a coconut, what they mean is you might have some conservative values. That's to be white. Or you turn up on time. That's to be white. Or you read Charles Dickens. That's to be white. Or you go to the opera. That's to be white. That's the kind of thing that you might hear some people on the left say. Now, obviously, there are lots of people on the left who don't behave like this and who don't think like that. But what I'm pointing to here and trying to expose in what I'm saying is a tacit racism that exists on the left and is acceptable. And it really should not be acceptable in 2022.
No, I completely agree. And Catherine, what's fascinating, and Kwarteng alluded to this in the interview, is that the left actually seem furious about the diversity in the Conservative Party. I mean, Huck also referred to the Tory leadership contest, for example, and the number of ethnically diverse candidates to be Tory leader. But she did it in a way where it, again, was not real in her view. And it almost feels like because the Conservatives and the right focus much more on a meritocracy rather than a quota-type system, they don't believe that the diversity is genuine.
I agree with you. So there's this real sense that ethnic minorities need to be helped in this kind of patronizing way. So we'll have a diversity quota and we'll let you in because poor you can't be there on your own merit. So we need to sort of let you in and then we'll consider you to be an ethnic minority. But if you get somewhere on your own merit, then you're not really an ethnic minority. In the same way she said that Kwarteng was superficially black, he wasn't really black because he hadn't been helped either by quotas or by a helping hand pushing him up, that he just got to where he is on his own merit. And the whole thing is so patronizing and so insulting to any ethnic minority. I don't, all ethnic minorities should be outraged by this. I mean, and I think obviously some of us are, but I wish more of us would stand up to this kind of racism because it's insidious and it's deeply insulting. And it suggests that ethnic minorities are unable to stand up on their own 2 feet and find success on their own.
No, I couldn't agree more. Catherine Burbleston, the government's social mobility chair, thank you for putting that so beautifully. We'll speak soon. But coming up, after scenes of lefty aggression towards the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg and Michael Fabricant at the Tory party conference, is free speech and civility now dead in British politics? My superstar panel return to debate that in the Media Buzz after 10. I'll also break down how the MSM celebrated the Trust tax cut U-turn as the first front pages drop. But before that, as the COVID dictator of New Zealand brands free speech a new weapon of war, has Jacinda Ardern become the pin-up girl for tyranny? Neil Oliver gives his verdict straight after the break.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christie. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Tomorrow's newspaper front page is hot off the press coming up, but first Neil Oliver is tonight's outsider. Now, her authoritarian COVID performances told us all we needed to know about New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, but she's shown her anti-democratic colours once again in her latest chilling speech. The Kiwi Dare leader, who must not be criticised, took to the UN stage to urge leaders for a clampdown on free speech online, typically what globalists like to call mis- and disinformation. In a frightening address that should shock all true libertarians, Ardern casually called internet freedoms for the Joe Public a, quote, weapon of war. Watch.
As leaders, we're rightly concerned that even the most light touch approaches to disinformation could be misinterpreted as being hostile to the values of free speech that we value so highly. How do you tackle climate change if people do not believe it exists? How do you ensure the human rights of others are upheld when they are subjected to hateful and dangerous rhetoric and ideology? But we have an opportunity here to ensure that these particular weapons of war do not become an established part of warfare. Because for every new weapon we face, there is a new tool to overcome it. For every attempt to push the world into chaos is a collective conviction to bring us back to order. We have the means. We just need the collective will.
It's not the first time power-hungry Ardern has let a true commie nature slip. Remember this Orwellian demand of her locked up and muzzled citizens during the pandemic?
The most up-to-date information daily. You can trust us as a source of that information. You can also trust the Director General of Health and the Ministry of Health for that information. Otherwise, dismiss anything else. We will continue to be your single source of truth. We will provide information frequently. We will share everything we can, everything else you see, a grain of salt.
Neil Oliver, Ardern proudly trashed civil liberties and bodily autonomy during COVID, and now she's waging war on free speech. What's this about?
For any politician to declare that she is the single source of truth is nothing less than dangerous. There's really no other word for it, and I could use stronger language if I was allowed to do so, but she is nothing less than dangerous. The likes of Ardern, like Trudeau in Canada, it's as clear as the noses on their faces that they fantasize about the kind of totalitarian control that's available to the leader of the Chinese Communist Party. You can see that they fantasize about when the day comes that they're able to round up their political opponents and those that disagree with them and just put them somewhere out of sight. You can see it. You can see it in their faces. And that she is taking to the world stage, that she's going to somewhere like the United Nations and calling on that audience where she evidently thinks she'll find support for her cause. You know, the world has to pay attention to the blatant declaration by people like Jacinda Ardern that for them the days of debate, reasoned argument, winning people over by the rightness of your cause are over, and all they want now is the right, the power, and the necessary technological levers to make sure that what they say goes. This idea of Misinformation, disinformation, those are yet more words that have been rendered meaningless by misuse. She doesn't mean misinformation or disinformation. What she's talking about is dissent. What she doesn't want to hear is a single voice raised against her. She has driven her country and her economy and her people off of a cliff. And yet, far from taking a pause for some humility and maybe to look back at what she has done and the mistakes that she has made, she's evidently decided just to keep her foot on the gas pedal, flat to the floor. You know, she's across the Rubicon now. There's no turning back and no slowing down.
Yeah, and let's just make sure, Neil, there's no criticism. That's the solution, isn't it? And the terrifying thing is, Neil, is that we know the big tech giants, you know, the likes of YouTube and Meta and Facebook and Twitter, they broadly agree with her.
Well, we see it all the time. Just last week or so, we saw the antics of PayPal, who were defunding or interfering with the cash flow to Us for Them and to Toby Young's Free Speech Union and so on. You know, they feel that where they don't like the sound of something or they don't like the look of something, they can throttle it. They can just cut off its blood supply at the flick of a switch. And Ardern, Trudeau and the rest, they look on at the levers of technology that would enable them to silence dissent. And yes, you're right. We've seen it so far that the likes of Facebook and Twitter are all too happy to get lockstep behind these tin pot tyrants that will brook no dissent and want the only voices on the airwaves to be their own. These people are so demonstrably using Aldous Huxley's Brave New World and Orwell's 1984 not as warnings but as manuals, textbooks. It's blatant now that these people just want they want dissenting voices silenced. They understand now that the technology is there to enable them to do that. And she says that with a smile on her face. She's sinister.
But what's so terrifying, Neil, is that most of the MSM just nods along. So thank God for you, Neil Oliver. It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, just like her predecessor Boris Johnson, Liz Truss has been hobbled by a media and political establishment who value power over the prosperity of the UK. Today, she forced this mortifying climb down delivered by her Chancellor.
Though the plan put forward only 10 days ago has caused a little turbulence, I get it. I get it. We are listening and have listened.
We'll look at how the MSM are celebrating the reversal of Truss's top tax cuts as tomorrow's newspaper front pages drop throughout the show. Plus, as high-profile MPs, including Michael Gove and Grant Shapps, come out against the new PM, and another reportedly submits a confidence letter. Does the Tory party have a terminal loyalty problem? I'll debate at 10:30 with my superstar panel, top Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, the broadcaster Sam Dowler, and the former Brexit Party MEP Belinda de Lucy. As Jacob Rees-Mogg needs a police escort and Michael Fabricant is rushed by demonstrators at the Tory party conference.
You lost my family
Is this proof that lefty bullying is destroying civility and free speech in politics? We'll have a respectful debate that those lot could learn something from in just a few minutes' time. After a bombshell new book reveals she was, quote, unresponsive to the Queen Consort's advice about how to survive in the royal family, did Meghan always have it in for Camilla? Angela Levin, writer of a bombshell new book about the woman behind King Charles, will investigate live at 10:15. After Virgin Atlantic nosedives into wokeism with its skirts for male flight attendants, man of the people Jim Davidson gives his rapid-fire take on some of the week's most baffling headlines at Uncancelled at 10:40. Plus, Scotland today gave Nicola Sturgeon the reaction you'd expect of arguably the country's most divisive leader. Not that the MSM want you to know about it. We'll have that and more of the latest viral stories in the media buzz on the way. The first greatest Britain and Union jackass of the week will be crowned too. But before all of that, the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. Good evening to you. The Chancellor has said it's now time to get Britain moving, just hours after he announced a U-turn on tax cuts for the wealthy. Addressing the Tory party conference today, Kwasi Kwarteng acknowledged it's been a tough day and he promised there'd be no more distractions, as he called them. Earlier on today, he confirmed he's scrapping the 45 pence income tax rate for people earning more than £150,000 a year. He's set to publish his medium-term fiscal plan later this month, having previously insisted he'd wait until the 23rd of November. Mr Kwarteng told party members in Birmingham rather than bashing business, the government would be backing it.
More jobs, higher pay, more money for public services. Because we cannot have a strong NHS without a strong economy. We can't have good schools without a strong economy. We cannot fund our armed forces without a strong economy. So growing our economy should be our central and guiding mission.
Well, the Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, said the speech showed the government was out of touch and had an appalling record on growth. And talking about the tax cut, she said the U-turn had come too late.
It was obvious they weren't going to get this through the House of Commons. They were forced into this screeching U-turn. But so much damage has already been done with higher government borrowing costs and huge worries for people about how they're going to afford their mortgages.
Well, away from politics, a 34-year-old man has been remanded in custody after being charged with the murder of Olivia Pratt-Corbell. Thomas Cashman appeared at Liverpool Crown Court, accused of fatally shooting the 9-year-old girl inside her home in August. He's also charged with the attempted murder of Olivia's mother, as well as 2 counts of possessing a firearm with intent to endanger life. Ofgem is warning the UK faces a significant risk of gas shortages this winter as a result of Russian disruption to supplies in Europe and the war in Ukraine. The energy regulator said Britain was in a good position with few direct imports of Russian gas, but needs to be prepared for all scenarios this winter. Ofgem had said it's putting sensible contingency measures in place. And the King has offered his warmest congratulations to residents in Scotland's newest city in his first public engagement as monarch. King Charles and his Queen Consort have been welcomed by crowds in Dunfermline to mark the former town gaining city status. It's one of 8 places that have won city status as part of Queen Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. The King said there could be no more fitting way to mark his late mother's extraordinary life and service.
That would, I know, gladden my dear mother's heart, as it certainly gladdens mine. And as you celebrate your well-deserved status as Scotland's new city, I can only offer my warmest congratulations and my heartfelt wishes for the years to come.
That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. You're with GB News, the People's Channel. Let's get back to Dan.
Tomorrow's News Tonight now in our Media Buzz. And let's kick off with their very first look at the front pages, hot off the press. The lady is for U-turning, declares the Daily Star, as they mock up Truss and Kwasi in a noddy car. The publication also brand Truss a Poundland Thatcher. The Independent warns that Truss will have to face down Tory rebels as they vow to block cuts to benefits and public spending. The Eye also follows with the warning of the new Tory rebellion over those benefit cuts. My superstar panel back with me now, Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, the journalist and broadcaster Sam Dowler, and the former MEP and political campaigner Belinda de Lucy. It's the great political illusion of the 21st century. The left, the bastions of kindness, fighting a noble war against the horrible, nasty Tories. Down with the hate, up with kinder, gentler politics, right? Wrong. Most of us know by now that the concept is not only untrue, but actually the total opposite of reality. It was only last week that Labour suspended MP Rupa Huq for a frankly vile racist attack on our new Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng. Now the left's nasty streak has continued, this time at the Conservative Party conference in Birmingham. Here's how Business Secretary Jacob Rees-Mogg and Tory MP Michael Fabricant were greeted on their arrival. Now, I'm all for free speech, and protests in a democratic country are not only acceptable but should be encouraged. But just imagine if that level of incivility was going on at a Labour Party conference. The hysterical media would be frothing at the mouth, leading all their news bulletins with claims of far-right violence. And do just remember, it was a Tory MP, Sir David Amess, knifed to death less than a year ago. Despite taking a load of abuse, Rees-Mogg remained gracious about the rabble-rousers outside the conference hall when he took to the stage this afternoon.
But also I want to thank you for giving me almost as warm a welcome as I got outside the hall. But I think that's rather marvellous. I happen to think that having a democracy where you can actually walk through the streets and people can exercise their right to peaceful protest shows the strength of our society, and if people really want to call me Tory scum, I don't mind.
But tonight, the Tory grandee Bob Blackman, who sits on the board of the 1922 committee, has claimed he saw police laughing as Tories were abused. Blackman told the Daily Telegraph's Christopher Hope, "What I saw was very clear, people shouting at Conservative representatives coming into the conference. They were abusive. They were deliberately trying to provoke Conservative representatives to answer them back and cause trouble, but the police did nothing. In fact, it was worse than that because the police were laughing at what was going on." And Belinda de Lucy, this is becoming incredibly regular now. Any time any group on the right wants to gather in public, they face this absolute incivility, this abuse. And actually, I saw this at the Conservative Party Hastings in Eastbourne. It is physical intimidation. This is not protest, in my view.
No. Well, I mean, they say at the core of the Lib left is the very spoilt child, a sort of tantruming. It's what we saw just now in the clips, tantruming children, but adults. And I think this is becoming far too regular. You had at the 2019 Tory conference that huge banner across the bridge saying 130,000 killed under Tory rule, let's level the playing field, with effigies hanging by their necks off the bridge. This is the kind of sort of depths of violent narrative that they are sinking to. But you get it as well when women try and congregate about their sex-based rights. They're smoked bombed by left-wing trans activists. When you see Extinction Rebellion and the depths they go to, it's almost as if they've given up on the ballot box. So the only way they can win over people is by demonising those who don't agree with them and becoming violent. And you do see a sort of two-tier reaction from police to left-wing protests as opposed to right-wing protests. I remember being on a Brexit protest and not many women would join me because they say, I don't want to be spat at, I don't want to be called a Nazi. So it's David Lammy, you know, inciting hatred against anyone who voted Brexit and calling us worse than Nazis or the ERG worse than Nazis. That had a direct effect on people.
Absolutely. I completely agree with all of that. And Carol Malone, do not tell me if you had senior politicians on the Labour front bench having to be escorted in to the Labour conference last week, it would have led the BBC News, Sly News and ITV News all week. There's a double standard.
If, you know, I mean, I've been going to conferences for years, and this on the left is not unusual. This has been happening for years, where delegates going in are spat at, they're abused, they have eggs thrown at them, they're physically intimidated. You saw what that lad was doing to Michael Fabricant.
And the claim is, by the way, that Fabricant was actually pushed.
I saw that.
But we didn't see that on camera.
But, you know, we're talking about the cops before laughing. the Manchester police chief is a guy called John O'Hare. He said we have to get the balance right between what is a peaceful protest and when to step in and protect safety. Yeah. Well, you failed miserably, matey, if you're watching, because all the delegates going in said that they felt intimidated and scared. Can you imagine if anyone had spat at Angela Rayner or abused her? She'd be on every single news programme screaming about it. But Labour seems to get a pass where this thuggery is concerned. There's always an excuse why they're doing it. If the right had done it, you're right, there would have been cries of Nazi, far right, all that stuff. Tories, to my knowledge, have never done that at a Labour conference. Not ever, as far as I can remember. And yet, this happens year after year after year. Do you remember what they did to Laura Kuenssberg in 2017 when she came to the Tory conference? And the misogynistic hate campaign against Kuenssberg was beyond shocking. And this was because the left had decided that she didn't like Jeremy Corbyn and was biased against him. Well, you know, the rest of the country didn't like Jeremy Corbyn either, as we discovered. But, you know, she was not biased. She was a very good reporter. And she left, you know, I mean, it didn't take too long after that before she packed that in. She wasn't going to do it anymore. You can't live under that level of threat. Were there any arrests made? Were there people prosecuted for doing that to her? I doubt it. There was 15 arrests made today. I think 5 people were charged. And the police chief was actually making the excuse and saying that the new fences protect delegates. No, they don't. We saw clearly they didn't protect the delegates, who were very scared. The fences, there should have been, you know, when Fabricant was walking in, there was no cops there, nobody protecting him. And Jacob Rees-Mogg has been very graceful because, of course, the way to deal with these idiots is to laugh at them. However, that wouldn't apply to women, because women would be scared of that, no question.
Sam Dowler, do you defend this thuggery?
Of course not. I don't defend any kind of shouting in somebody's face, or but I mean, it's not that far off from applauding people booing at Nicola Sturgeon like we were earlier on today.
Are you kidding? No, it's different.
Are you seriously kidding?
No, but it's
spitting.
Bar the barriers.
Spitting.
There's not that much difference.
No, I'm sorry, spitting,
bar the barriers,
throwing eggs,
pushing someone. Let's also not forget about what happened to Joe Cox as well. That was from...
we're not forgetting it, that's the point.
That's from the other side completely.
That was one lone wolf.
Of course, these are people who are riled up by what's happening in this country, riled up specifically by, obviously, with Jacob Rees-Mogg, by the you know, robbing from the poor to give
Why
to the
are they
rich.
riled up by Jacob Rees-Mogg?
So he deserved it. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying he deserved it.
You just don't like him because he's rich.
No, I don't say that. But he's like a Disney villain. I think he's more. Why? He's more of a distraction to the cabinet. I think he should be gotten rid of.
No, this is talking, Tosh. This is this guy, isn't it?
The rest of the country sees him as this.
One thing that you don't like about his politics, you couldn't tell me. You're just slating him.
He's out of touch. He's out of touch.
It's the politics of envy that Labour have allowed.
Sam, what you told our researcher earlier is that you don't like him because he is a posh white man.
There you go.
Oh, here we go. Now you're in
and
for
this
it,
is what
Sam.
that's about.
That is not why I don't like him. I don't like him because he cannot engage with his people. He can't engage with his constituents.
Yes, he can. He engages perfectly well.
No, he can't. I'm hoping that he gets voted out the first chance he gets, because he doesn't. Somebody on GB News earlier said that he should be Prime Minister. I mean, for goodness
sake.
No, but you know what he... Would you really want him on the world? Would you want him on the world stage?
Do you know
really?
what he does?
No, I would.
Sam,
I think he does a great job, actually.
Sam, do you know what he does in government? Do you know what he does? What's his job? Well, but you hate him, but you don't know what his job is in government.
I did not say I hate him.
Well, you ought to know who he is.
He's hot-footed from one position to the next and just been the same.
He has the courage.
You don't know what position he's in.
He's been on every... I'm from a posh background. I mean, I know what these people are like, and I know what he is like.
The problem is, what I'm hearing from you is you are not prepared to completely condemn what was going on outside the gates of the Tory party conference. You're saying that, Rees-Mogg deserves it.
We live in a free country. I don't obviously condone poking a hooter in his face or whatever they were doing.
Well,
and I'm glad the police were there to protect him. And even if the police weren't there, I don't think anyone would have assaulted him or anything like that. But we have to remember that the Conservatives are the party in power. So therefore, the vitriol is far more like.
But do you notice there is a difference?
Of course,
do you admit there is a difference?
But they don't care when it comes to the Labour Party because they're not in power. They're not in power, so it doesn't matter to them.
Tories didn't do that when Labour were in power. They didn't attack conferences like that. Do you know, Jacob Rees-Mogg smog. He has protesters on his doorstep. His kids get hassled by
they were
protesters.
booing his kids.
How
Going,
dare
Of course I don't agree with booing his children. But also, Jacob Rees-Mogg doesn't care about being mocked. So as he just joked about it there, he doesn't really care about it.
He was being gracious.
He wouldn't name his kids the names he gave them if he cared.
What my issue is this is actually becoming anti-democratic because it's becoming terrifying. I actually saw at the Tory party hustings members of the public who were too terrified to walk in past the baying mob. They turned around. I went and spoke to them and they said, no, I'm just too scared to enter. I'm not going to do it.
And I agree, that's a disgrace.
And it is intimidation and it should be condemned.
But it reminds me of, like, people who, anti-abortion, people who stand outside abortion clinics.
But that's not this country. No, you can't start bringing America into it.
Oh, it is in this country as well.
Let's not talk about America, Sam. Let's not talk about what's going on in America.
Is it really?
Yeah, in Scotland. It's happening in Scotland right now. Right now. That's why Nicola Sturgeon has tried to...
Actually, can I talk about America for one moment?
Yes.
Because the alarmist US broadcaster CNN is known for blowing things out of proportion, and they've been at it again, appropriately, during their coverage of Hurricane Ian that has been ravaging the southeastern states of America. Now, don't get me wrong, at least 86 deaths reported in Florida and North Carolina once Ian made landfall. This was a major weather event. But when the quite fittingly named Derek Van Dam took to the rain-lashed streets of Florida to report on the cyclone's approach, eagle-eyed viewers realised his report might have been a bit of a storm in a teacup. So while you're watching this, keep an eye on the man walking to a car in the background.
For only the most extreme moments, they don't issue those lightly. And clearly, the way that we are getting whipped around and battered by this violent wind is enough reason for us, the National Weather Service, to issue those extreme wind warnings. Look, we are on...
Nice try, Derek. Don't worry, I'm sure this will blow over soon for you. Our Village Lucy, Sam Bella, Karen Malone, do stand by, because coming up, as Liz Truss reneges on tax cuts despite promising to make unpopular decisions, is your confidence in the new PM shaken? I'll debate that and whether snakes like Michael Gove and the Sat Grant chaps prove the Tories have a terminal case of disloyalty. That's when my superstar panel return in the media buzz at 10:30. But first, after a bombshell new book reveals she was, quote, unresponsive to the Queen Consort's advice about how to survive in the royal family, did Meghan always have it in for Camilla? Angela Levin, the author who knows the woman behind the king better than most, will investigate straight after the break.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Now, earlier today, King Charles confirmed city status on Dunfermline in Scotland, which was one of eight communities awarded the honour as part of the late Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. And at the weekend, the present and future of the monarchy was captured on camera as two generations of the King and Queen consort posed together in a new portrait taken at Buckingham Palace on the 19th of December. There are, of course, two notable absentees from the exclusive snap, with no room for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Tensions between the firm and Harry and Meghan remain fraught, and a sensational new biography from royal expert Angela Levin has added a fresh layer of intrigue. In her latest book, titled Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, From Outcast to Future Queen Consort, Angela traces Camilla's rocky journey to be accepted by the royal family, of which she is now an integral and much-loved member. And in an illuminating section about the Sussexes, Angela reveals that Camilla tried to use her own experiences to warmly welcome and integrate Meghan into the firm, but shockingly, her generosity fell on deaf ears. Angela writes that Meghan seemed bored, was unresponsive and preferred to go her own way, with the result that the Queen Consort's advice landed on stony ground. And I'm delighted that Angela joins me in the studio now to discuss her very impressive new book. So, Angela, this was fascinating to me. It's almost as if it seems like Meghan, because we know she doesn't like Camilla now, and Harry doesn't really like Camilla. There's all of this talk that they're going to slag her off in their new book if it ever comes. But it almost feels like she had it in for Camilla from the start, based on your revelations.
Yes, well, I think I have something in common with Valentine Lowe at the same time, that he said that several people thought that she didn't want to settle down. She wanted to use it. And the more she was talked about nastily or unkindly, in her view, she had a sort of lot of evidence that she wasn't being successful there. And I think that he's absolutely right. He's explained it in a very good way. But it was just you couldn't get through to her. You couldn't make it work. I remember being told by Lucia Santa Cruz, who was Camilla's friend from way back when they were in their teens, and she said that Camilla thought that it would be very nice to invite her and Harry and herself to Highgrove, because Meghan had just written a cookery book for the Grenfell Tower ladies and gentlemen who'd been unfortunate, and so many had lost their lives. And this was all recipes from all around the world that she'd taken, and they cooked. The meal was considered of everything came from the recipe book: the starter, the middle course, the main course. And Lucia told me that Meghan wasn't the least bit interested, not the least bit grateful, nothing.
Even though Camilla had made all that effort?
Yes, she'd made all that effort, and she just didn't bother at all. So I thought that was pretty unkind.
And what about the narrative around King Charles's 70th birthday?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of speculation about what went on there.
Yes, well, I was lucky enough to go there. It was 3 days after Prince Harry and Meghan's wedding, and I'd been part of CNN's team to talk through it, and got very friendly with a couple of aides at Buckingham Palace, and they rang me and said, look, I think they're coming. We're not sure because they might be tired, but if you'd like to see them again, come and join the party. So there were 6,500 people there, and it was the first of many parties because it took place in May and the King's birthday's in November, but it was all to do with his patronages. And people were very charming, and Harry and Meghan came walking just behind Camilla and Charles, smiling, laughing. Camilla held Meghan's hand in a way that was very motherly, so she wouldn't feel nervous. Anyway, Harry had said beforehand that he wasn't going to stay long because he didn't want to take the limelight from his father, although he gave a marvellous speech, which was absolutely brilliant, and very kind, nice, generous. And they said they'd go, maybe they'd stay about half an hour, 40 minutes. And they said, whenever you want to come and go, that's fine. And then I was right closer than I am to you now. At the time they said they would go. There were lots of kisses and cuddles and thank yous and very, very nice. And off they went. But that's been used somehow. It's been stretched to be the beginning of the trouble of the palace, and they claimed that they were thrown out. Well, there were no protection officers there dragging them out. Prince Charles, who was having a lovely time for his first birthday party for the year, wouldn't have made a fuss and done anything wrong. William wasn't there because he'd gone to Manchester because of the anniversary of the terrible event there when so many people were killed. It's absolute nonsense. I was standing right there. So why they've used that, they've twisted it somehow to being the beginning of the problem of what happened. Yes.
Victims.
Yes.
And they're looking, I think you're right, they're looking for ways to be considered victims. And what is so fascinating is we just saw at the top of the item this photo that was released at the weekend, and that's very much being seen as a bit of a sign by the monarchy. Here's our future, Harry and Meghan. You could have been part of it, you're not. And so what do? They go and release their own official portrait, Angela. I mean, it just feels like ridiculous.
One in black and white. I thought they looked as if they wanted to be on postage stamps because they were both looking, you saw them from the side, and very serious and solemn. I just did in competition with the main royal family. They just want to squash it down in any way they can. And it seems that they can't bear it if they've got publicity, that they have to do better. Well, they didn't do better. They couldn't do better. It was an amazing picture. And it's a whole new life now that's going to happen.
And in your book, I mean, you make, which I've got here, I think it's great, you make it very, very clear that actually Camilla has been able to turn this around. So even if there is going to be this incoming from Harry in his autobiography, we don't know if he will potentially remove some of the more damaging revelations after the death of the Queen, or the late Queen Elizabeth II, about Camilla. But even if there is this incoming from Harry now, Angela, are you of the view that actually the public are more likely to side with her now over Harry and Meghan?
Yes, well, she's been very brave. It's been a quite difficult life at some points. What's very extraordinary about her is that she doesn't hold grievances. She just tries to blot things out. She'll go and read to take her mind into a different place. And I think that people have gradually got to know her as she is. She doesn't like the spotlight, so she's not someone who's grabbing attention, saying, I want 50-50, I'm the Queen, you're the King. Not at all.
No,
she's
she
there
wants him to take the lead.
She was there to support him, yes, absolutely. And I think they'll look very foolish if they try and attack her.
No, and I thought your book was brilliant. I do think it is going to be a difficult few months for Camilla and Charles, though, because, of course, not only do they have this terrible thought of the autobiography hanging over them, they have the new series of The Crown coming too, and we know how influential that is amongst young people, and especially folk overseas. And, of course, this new series is going to focus on all of the relationship troubles between Charles and Diana, and Camilla's role in the 80s and the 90s.
That's why I wanted to do the book. I decided, having seen Series 3, that it was absolutely too nasty for words, and I wanted to balance it out. And I've hoped I've shown very different sides to her from all the people who've known her. It's not me saying, I like her, therefore she's wonderful. I've asked people who've known her in all sorts of spheres, and I think that that's very important. So when it comes out, hopefully people will see that it's just a nasty way of showing her, which isn't really true.
The real Camilla, revealed by royal expert and author Angela Levin, and Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, from Outcast to future Queen Consort. Thank you so much, Angela.
Thank you.
Great to have you here. Coming up, it's the story that caused plenty of turbulence this week. Jim Davidson gives his rapid-fire take on Virgin Atlantic's skirt-wearing male stewards, and more of the week's wokest stories. That's it, uncancelled soon. But first, is your confidence in Liz Truss shaken after her tax cut U-turn? With the likes of Gove and Shapps coming out against yet another PM, does the Tory party have a terminal loyalty problem? My superstar panel return to debate that next, and we'll have more newspaper front pages coming up as well. I'm going to show you actually that Harry and Meghan picture, which has made one of those front pages. Back in just a moment.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christie. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Time to return to tomorrow's News Tonight now on our Media Buzz. More front pages have just been delivered. What a day, declares the Metro after a 24 hours that saw the Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng U-turn on tax cuts, take to the stage at the Tory conference and discover new polls have put Labour 25 and 28 points ahead, respectively. I mean, why do the polls matter? At this point, would be my argument. The economy's got to be turned around first, and unfortunately, that U-turn's got to make it less likely to be able to turn it around. The Daily Telegraph leads with Truss taking on rebels in a battle to rein in benefits. The publication reports on unease at the top of government over considerations not to raise universal credit in line with inflation, which some cabinet members have branded a, quote, non-starter. So just prepare for the next battle and the next U-turn. The Daily Mail repeats calls from Tories for the PM to get a grip as she refuses to rule out more policy U-turns. Meanwhile, and as I mentioned just before the break, can you believe this? Harry and Meghan have released this rival official portrait just 2 days after King Charles, Camilla and the Prince and Princess of Wales unveiled theirs. It was taken before attending the opening ceremony of One Young World last month. Anything you can do, they can do worse. The Daily Mirror reports from what they call a calamity conference, as the paper suggests that despite Truss and Kwarteng's tax U-turn, the damage is already done. Well, of course, they would say that. But the Daily Express leads with a rallying cry from Liz Truss, urging readers to stick with her after a rocky start, admitting it had, quote, not been an easy week. Ain't that the truth? More on the Media Buzz now with tonight's superstar panel, top Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, the journalist and broadcaster Sam Dowler and the former MEP and political campaigner Belinda de Lucy. Now, breaking tonight, Kwasi Kwarteng will reportedly bring forward the publication of his plan to cut Britain's debt from its November 23rd publication date to later this month. The Chancellor's now in full damage control mode after being forced by Truss to U-turn on plans to scrap the 45p top tax rate. Here's how he attempted to gloss over the dire situation at the Tory party conference in Birmingham this evening.
I know the plan put forward only 10 days ago has caused a little turbulence. I get it. We are listening and have listened. And now I want to focus on delivering the major parts of our growth package. Because with energy bills skyrocketing, a painful COVID aftermath, war on our continent, a 70-year high tax burden, we can't sit idly by. What Britain needs more than ever is economic growth.
Frankly, I'm struggling to get on board with Kwarteng's optimism after Truss so willingly caved to pressure from the MSM and Tory rebels. Among them, his bitter and twisted former Cabinet colleagues, Michael Gove and Grant Shapps. Now, Gove, the former Levelling Up Secretary, who has a well-earned reputation as a snake, broke ranks yesterday to stick the knife into Truss and the government during a hugely damaging interview with the Beeb's Laura Koonsberg. Watch.
Additional money that we're borrowing is not to cut energy costs, it is for unfunded tax cuts.
And you sound concerned about that. I mean,
profoundly.
You're profoundly concerned.
Yes. The sheer risk of using borrowed money to fund tax cuts. That is not conservative. When you have additional billions of pounds in play, to have as your principal decision the headline tax move, cutting tax for the wealthiest, that is a display of the wrong values.
Spineless Shapps, furious about being sacked from the Cabinet, also took up arms in the Tories' mission of self-destruction by publicly opposing the tax cuts in an incendiary column for The Times. Today he celebrated the Chancellor's damaging U-turn.
Policy didn't stack up and it didn't make sense. And it's absolutely right and proper, and I'm very pleased it's been done quickly, that the government's U-turned on this, and I strongly welcome it this morning.
Unlike Gove and Shapps, Nadine Dorries is a politician famed for her fierce loyalty, but today the former Culture Secretary also criticised Truss, telling the new PM to call a general election if she wants to dump Johnson-era policies. She tweeted widespread dismay at the fact that 3 years of work has effectively been put on hold. No one asked for this. Channel 4 sale, online safety, BBC licence fee review, all signed off by Cabinet, all ready to go. All stopped. If Liz wants a whole new mandate, she must take that to the country. Now, Truss promised to make unpopular decisions and to show unflinching determination in the face of criticism for the good of the country, just like her idol Margaret Thatcher. But after taking no time to prove that the lady is for turning, is your confidence in the new PM shaken? Or Carol Malone, is she just a victim of what seems to be now a terminal loyalty problem in the Conservative Party? Because they did this to Boris and she's been in the job 27 days and they're all turning on her.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely right. I think, you know, I was really surprised at her U-turning, and yes, my confidence has been shaken in her. Mind you, the confidence only came after the budget. I mean, I didn't rate her when she was in the election campaign because I didn't believe what she was saying. But when I saw that budget, I thought, God, she's serious about getting this country back on its feet. But how can my confidence not be shaken when that budget was delivered? She said it was absolutely necessary, needed to get this country back on its feet, to promote growth, productivity, to boost the economy. And yet, just days later, she's taking away part of that budget. And I think what I learned about her this week was, I think the fact that she threw Kwarteng under the bus says much about her character. Now, does she care about this country and growth and productivity, or does she care about saving her own neck? And what she did yesterday by chucking him under the bus was about saving her own neck when she said, "Oh yes, it wasn't my idea; it was his idea." But I just think, you know. And also, I'll tell you what put me off her last week as well. What made me scared was that she went missing. When the you-know-what was hitting the fan last week and the markets were crashing and the pound was crashing, she was nowhere to be seen. Bad. And I was thinking, you know, she compares herself to Thatcher. Do we really think Margaret Thatcher would have gone into hiding having delivered that kind of budget? She would have been out selling it to the country, which is exactly what Truss should have been doing before the damage got too bad.
Your decision, stick by it and sell it with some pride, because there was a lot to be proud about.
How can we believe it if she clearly doesn't?
Yeah. Belinda de Lucy, I'm sorry, though, we've got to talk about these snakes. We've got to talk about Gove, for example, because let's be honest, if he was still in the Cabinet, he wouldn't be thinking any of this. He lost with Kemi Badenoch, who had a brilliant campaign, by the way, and I love her. She's great. She's hopefully future leader of the Tory party in many years' time. But then he went all in with Sunak. He lost fair and square. So now, as is his reputation, as he did with Boris Johnson back in 2016, he will stop at nothing to get this woman out. And I think it's hugely disloyal.
I have great concerns over the centrist blob, not just Gove, but the kind of, you know, I know they're no longer MPs, but the Hammonds and the Greaves, they're still lurking around.
That's so powerful.
May, they're the centrist blob, and I have this feeling that they actually want to spell an opposition to regroup, reset the Tory party in the image of the hugger hoodie David Cameron days, and spend that time in opposition, getting rid of all these right-wingers that are just causing them a lot of embarrassment at the moment, because they seem to inflict daily pain on their own party. I mean, Gove doing this at a time where Labour's leading in the poll. As you said, we've only had Truss for a blink of an eye. We haven't even been able to see what she's capable of, and Gove is already sticking the knife in her back. This is not a party that wants to win the next election.
Well, we were told he was taking a step back from politics. And, of course, I'm sure everyone in the media knows he was in for a very big job, which he hasn't got. So now he's come back to create havoc within the Tory party. So, the man is a snake in the grass who doesn't care about the country. I mean, I don't care what Grand Shapps does or says, because he's totally irrelevant in the scheme of things. But Gove is not irrelevant because he's still powerful.
Did you hear what Jacob Rees-Mogg said about Gove today? He said that he was the Tories' version of Peter Mandelson.
Yes, well,
and I was like, perfect.
Yes, that is completely right. He is a snake.
Sam, what do you make of it all?
Well, first of all, Grant Shapps is actually my MP.
That matters why.
And actually, he's done some really good things for the constituents people that I know. Really, really wonderful things like helping out with disabled children, etc. And so I actually do really like Grant Shapps. But however, I do question Michael Gove's motives. At the end of the day, why are you trying to debilitate the sitting government at a time when they are at their most vulnerable? I don't understand.
Well, it's a gift for your lot, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a gift for Labour.
You say my lot, but at the end of the day, what I would like is stability, and I would like a government that we could count on. I would like a government, whether it be Labour or, as I said, I'm centrist, whether it be Labour or it be Conservative, I would like a government that we can count on. We don't feel afraid.
Some of our viewers might be surprised to define yourself.
I want the best for the people in our country. Don't we all want that? Surely.
Well, then why did you want Truss to U-turn then?
No, I didn't want her to U-turn. I didn't want her to U-turn at all. I would have preferred she stayed the course. She stayed the course, because at least then, we wouldn't feel like the rug was being pulled from beneath us at all times, like we do now. All of us, left and right.
I think the big mistake was when they announced this budget, they should have kept the 45p tax rate out of it until they had announced all the giveaways.
Agreed.
Until they'd announced all the giveaways. Then they could have brought in this later in November when the markets had settled. That was their big mistake, the timing. But I think the budget itself... The budget in America is currently being praised by Tories over there, by right-wingers over there, saying it's inspired. And yet in this country, the Tories...
Well, it's over now, because one of the key planks, gone. And the problem is, you know what? There is never going to be a slashing of the 45p tax rate now. We are stuck with this in our country for years and years to come, because it is now going to be viewed as politically toxic to go anywhere near it. And let me just remind everyone, Tony Blair, do you think he's far right? He had a 40p top tax rate through his entire New Labour era.
If the Tories can't do it, then Labour certainly will never be able to.
Of course not. So we're stuck with it.
Did introduce the 50% for a few months before they left, and it was found to be totally unworkable.
Of course it was.
It made no money.
Of course it was.
It was uncompetitive.
And it was a ridiculous Gordon Brown policy.
Yeah.
Now, King Charles and the Queen Consort might have been nervous to visit Scotland today, given the SNP's anti-union rhetoric, but it was scheming Nicola Sturgeon who got royally jeered on her home turf. So on a visit to Mark Dunfermline's new city status, the First Minister received a response she hadn't expected. That a leader as divisive as her, some would argue, maybe deserves. Watch. Was that booze I hear? Oh, yes, I think it was. Now, some of her supporters have come forward and pointed out that there were cheers as well, and fair enough, I accept that. But cast your mind back just 4 months to when Boris Johnson was jeered outside St Paul's Cathedral in London during the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. That was all over the MSM. But the media establishment conveniently left out that there were also cheers for him, even though the incident was widely cited as helping to fuel the confidence vote that occurred 3 days later. Never mind confidence, I'll settle for competence and an even playing field when it comes to the coverage of Nicola Sturgeon by the MSM. But I know I'm never going to get that, because they're in the tank for Sturgeon, that's why. Belinda DeLucy, Sam Dowler, Howard Malone. Do stand by, because coming up, my superstar panel return as we reveal the first Greatest Britain and Union jackass of the week. But before that, after Virgin Atlantic nosedives into wokeism with its skirts for male flight attendants, our woke slayer-in-chief Jim Davidson gives his rapid-fire take on that and more of the week's most baffling stories. He's here in mere seconds, actually. First, though, quick look at what's coming up in tomorrow's show.
Coming up on Dan Wootton tonight, with the knives already out for Boris Johnson's successor Liz Truss, will she suffer the same fate? The former PM's father Stanley Johnson gives his verdict on the Tory party's bloodlust and whether Truss can hang on. He joins my superstar panel alongside top Daily Mail columnist Amanda Patel and author and journalist Rebecca Reed. Plus, Star Telegraph writer Celia Walden gives her verdict on Meghan's fall from grace in the royal rankings and now the US. And there's opinion galore from Fleet Street legend Calvin McKenzie and stateside journalist Megyn Kelly. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
But it's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, you'd have thought struggling airlines would need all the help they can get after almost going bust over the last 2 years. First, we had Virgin Atlantic announcing pronoun badges for staff and giving the green light for men to wear skirts on planes with this effort from last week. Well, British Airways, now the latest carrier to risk going woke and potentially going broke in an attempt to please the Perma victim wokerati by reviewing its own policies. Announcing the review, our flagship carrier said it was committed to a, quote, inclusive working environment, including male pilots flaunting heels, lipstick and dresses. And remember, it was BA who last year decided to ban staff addressing passengers as ladies and gentlemen over the tannoy over fears it would offend customers. There's only one man fit enough to dissect this latest round of pandering to PC culture, our woke slayer-in-chief, Jim Davidson. Jim, I mean, can't British Airways and Virgin just focus on getting planes off the ground on time, because they don't seem to be doing that very well at the moment?
That's the whole thing, isn't it? To me, they can wear whatever they want to wear, Dan, as long as that plane takes off. There's good service. They don't lose your bags, and you get food put in front of you that
doesn't taste like
Rambo could eat. Oh, I mean, it's ridiculous. And so is this just a little grab at a little bit of PR to try and cheer up all the woke people in case they're cancelled somewhere? Or is it, it's ridiculous. I mean, what's next? Can you still call it a cockpit? I mean, it's crazy.
Very good point, Jim. Very good point. I don't know, actually. Maybe you can't, Sue. It's not gender neutral, that term, is it? Now, Jim, Joe Biden's dropped a mortifying gaffe, possibly his worst yet, by calling out for a dead congresswoman to make herself known in the crowd during a speech. This is Republican lawmaker Jackie Walensky, who tragically died in a car crash weeks earlier. The White House struggling to defend the declining president. Have a look at this, Jim.
Representative Jackie, are you here? Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here to help make this a reality.
I mean, Jim, how long is everyone just going to turn a blind eye to this?
Well, you'd rather have him as president over there, and to be rather over there, it's okay. But I think I'd rather have a pilot. Would you rather have a pilot in a frock? A man in a frock flying the aeroplane, or Joe Biden having a little go? What would you want? That runway.
Definitely the man in a frock, let me tell you.
Very short, but look how wide it is. No, I think a lot of people get to a certain age where they've probably died 6 months ago and haven't fallen over yet. And I think this is what the problem is. They give him a bit of a nudge every now and then. It always used to be that the American presidents, what they'd say in the world of spooks, they always had a problem with women, and the Russian presidents always had a problem with alcohol. Well, I don't think we'll have a problem with women here with Sleepy Joe, I think we're pretty safe there.
That is fair to say. Now, Jim, back to UK politics. Liz Truss, she wasn't meant to be for turning, Jim, but she's already flipped now on the higher tax rate debacle. Is she still Margaret Thatcher 2.0?
No, I don't think she's any Thatcher at all, not even Mark. But I think that, do you know who she reminds me of? Remember Rita from Coronation Street from years ago? Rita that used to get all the words right. What Liz needs to do is to listen to other people, and I actually like Michael Gove. He's got a brain as big as a gymnasium. But I think if she's going to do a U-turn, she should certainly do a U-turn about the way she is looking at the veterans in this country. 3 million veterans in our country, and she has demolished the post that Johnny Mercer and all of us were trying to get, which is a seat at the big table to look after the veterans, and she's got rid of that now. I had lunch with her a while ago when I was running a veterans charity, and she didn't seem to understand that veterans need a helping hand, or not a handout, a hand up. You know, she didn't think that veterans needed anything. And I hope if she's going to do a U-turn, do a U-turn on that. And I've got a bit of advice for Kwasi.
Oh, yes.
Take a tip from Dan here. We are maestros at reading the autocue. So if you've got a screen here and a screen there, spend a little more time with each screen than just reading 2 words. What do you think, Dan? Do you agree?
Very good advice, Jim, from our very own woke Slayer-in-Chief. Jim will speak next week. Thank you so much. But it's time now to reveal today's greatest Britain and Union jackass. Carol Malone, who's your GB nominee?
Mine is our new Home Secretary, Suella Braverman. She's now vowing to close the loopholes that allow illegal immigrants who come over here by boat to stay. She's by the end of this year, about 60,000 are predicted to have come in. That's more than 1,000 every day. She's going to close the loopholes for that. She's also vowed to fight the cancel culture in this country. And also last week she had a victory in the appeal court when she took the Colson Four, who were let off the charge because we were told that under human rights laws they were allowed to pull down the Colson statue. Now the appeal court has ruled that they were legal, and that was that. So she's my person.
OK, good choice. Sam Dowler, your GB nominee.
Which one's this for? Is that your
greatest Britain?
Oh, the greatest Britain is Melanie B, actually, for being at the Conservative
Party conference. OK, Belinda DeLucy, your nominee.
my nominee is Captain Charles Howard, who was our last link to the Great Escape, but he died today at 102. Great British hero.
Oh, I've got to go for him. What an amazing Briton he was, and how terrible we're losing this generation. Union jackass time now. Carol Malone, very quickly.
Mine's very simple. Michael Gove, nasty, spiteful, backstabbing Michael Gove, who's trying to bring down this government.
And we know why. We've discussed it today a lot, haven't we? Sam Dowler, your nominee?
J.K. Rowling for invoking the ghost of Joseph Smith, the founder of the Mormon cult, in order to make a point and then getting it all wrong completely and starting another fight on Twitter. Well done, J.K.
Oh, and Belinda DeLucy.
Keep that witch hunt up. Poor JK. So mine is Nadine Dorris for slinging mud at another Tory PM. She's calling for a general election when Labour are ahead of the polls. It's madness.
Well, I'm going to go with Carol Malone and Michael Gove, because if we're talking about mudslinging, that snake threw the most of it over the past couple of days, and what damage he's caused. Carol Malone, Sam Dowler, Belinda DeLucy, thank you so much. I'm back tomorrow from 9 p.m. Good night.
I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update. Tomorrow, wet weather will be spreading steadily southwards, but across the far southeast and East Anglia, it'll be another dry and fairly warm day for October, thanks to this area of high pressure, but it is shrinking away, being pushed out of the way by weather fronts and low pressure systems, isobars squeezing together, telling us the winds are picking up. These weather fronts bringing more rain to western Scotland overnight, where it's already been a fairly soggy day. More rain